What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are talking about the week that was in week 8 of HBCU football, and we're talking about week 9. Man, listen, the season is almost over. It's November in about a week, so that's crazy too. Arielle, how you doing today?
I feel like I was out there with them kids having a homecoming weekend. I am so tired, but unfortunately, not in college anymore. So it's really life kicking my butt. But let me tell you, Central, South Carolina State, and Howard, all number one right now, all 1-0. Very interesting, very, very interesting end of season going into the MEAC. Very excited, especially about this Central and Morgan State game.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. We're going to talk about it in a second, but I got to tell you, Ariel, you said you felt like you was out there with the kids enjoying homecoming. I was actually out there for real. I got my, people don't see it, I got my Fort Valley State University hoodie on. I balled out in that bookstore, Ariel. Oh my gosh. Like, listen, working man. I'm a working man now, so I got to check. I got 9 outfits, Ariel. The next 9 homecomings came mess with me. I'm telling you, I got me a Fort Valley cardigan where it says 1895 on the side. I wanted that because A&T got it, Albany State got it, all these schools got it. We finally got cardigans, Ariel. Like, we out there making it happen. So listen, like, we're gonna talk more about that when we get to it. But let's start off with your game of the week, which was a defensive battle, my type of game, as you know, Ariel. North Carolina Central versus Morgan State. North Carolina Central won a very gritty battle, 16-10, but Morgan State looked really good, Ariel. So what you think?
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. This game was a defensive battle. You're exactly right, Randall. It was the battle of the defenses, and we all know that Central is number one in the MEAC when it comes to their defense. But at the same time, the game was also, to me, a little boring, but also a little sloppy on Davius Richards' part. But most of the sloppiness, of course, like how we already stated, came from Morgan State. You had Jason Chambers from North Carolina Central intercept Morgan State's QB. Unfortunately, that interception did not go into a touchdown, but by the end of the drive, they had a field goal, which was really delirious to me because Central knows how to capitalize off of mistakes. So for the fact that Davius Richard was only able to have one touchdown the whole game and the rest of his drives were only field goals kind of seems a little sloppy to me on Central's part. You also had a fumble by the running back Quincy Hull, which was on Morgan State's team, that also resulted into a field goal once recovered by Central. Also, I'm not going to lie, Morgan State put on a really, really great finishing drive, having that last minute touchdown going in 33 seconds of the game. But all it took was to punt it back. Central running it out, running down the clock, and in the game 16-10. Like I said, the game this wasn't to me one of Central's best games. I feel like we could have seen more from Davius Richards. He was sacked once, over 10 QB hurries, no turnovers, which was fortunate for them. But those are the things that you need to capitalize on because, like we said last week, Morgan State can play you for the first 3 quarters, and they did. They were able to score first, and they stalled. There were just over 5 punts that Central had, and there was 3 punts right before they scored at before the end of the half. So I'm just sitting here like, Central, you play South Carolina State next week, and they're the only team. You are 2-3 with them. The only team that you have to worry about where there's a 50% chance that you lose. You can capitalize on Howard. You can capitalize on Delaware State. All these other teams are beatable. You just beat Morgan State. But South Carolina State is not one of those teams that you want to slip up on. And they just got their first win in conference play. You have Howard that's 1-0, South Carolina State that's 1-0, and now you're 1-0, and you're coming over here with sloppy plays, incomplete passes. This wasn't the most efficient game for Davius Richards. 16 out of 30 passing attempts, 122 yards, which is below his 200 yards that he starts with in every game, and only 1 touchdown. Collier only here for 16 carries, 43 yards. That's under 40% what he's usually carrying. So I'm just confused at what Central was really doing in this game, why they weren't as proficient as they usually were. I mean, like everybody's been saying this whole season, a win is a win. Whether it's sloppy, whether it's really good, whether you're blowing out the team and you're only winning by a touchdown. This game to me was just very, very slow, but a really big defensive battle. Shout out to the quarterback on Morgan State. Anthony, 17 out of 28, 167 yards. Even though he had one interception, I think he was really, really polished, very well played, and kept his composure, even with that last minute touchdown. That even though they weren't able to push the game into overtime or able to get back on the field, their defense and him and his composure was absolutely amazing. But I feel like Central is going to have to beef it up, especially Davius Richards. He had a -4 yards on one of the second plays that they were running throughout this game. I honestly, everybody was like, "Oh, Central, look good. We came out with a win. We're back to Celebration Bowl path." But the way that this first in conference game was looking was just to me, it was out of whack, and it didn't look like the Central team that we had the dominating Central team that we have seen throughout the season. They scared me just a little bit. This game wasn't really necessarily something to watch, but it was a good start to what we're going to see in the next coming weeks.
I totally agree. And I think that one thing we look at the North Carolina Central game that I think is very pertinent is that North Carolina Central did not fare that well against that Morgan State defense. I think that if Morgan State had a more proficient offense, we'd be having a totally different conversation. We'd be talking about what's going on with North Carolina Central because they lost their first game. Because that was the problem. Because all night, Morgan State was able to hold that high-powered North Carolina Central offense. And you look at Davis Richard, like you said, like one thing is the passing. Of course, we've seen him have lower passing totals. But what really popped out at me is his rushing, his run yardage. Because typically, if he's not passing the ball, he's running the ball 60 yards, 70 yards, 80 yards, 90 yards, like at the end of the game, 2 rushing touchdowns. The fact that you have Davius Richard with no rushing touchdowns, 11 carries, 47 attempts, that tells me that the defense was working. And one thing I see with Davius is he likes to run outside. Like he'll run inside, like he'll do a QB power, he'll run inside, but when they in shotgun and you sort of see, because it was one play, they were in shotgun, I'm like, he gonna run the ball. Like Morgan State, he gonna run the ball, Morgan State, just get him. He tucked that thing, ran it, Morgan State said, no, threw him back. They were like, nope. I was like, it was so clear, outside run. And Davius is way more dynamic than that. He's not one-dimensional where he's only gonna run outside on the right. But at the same time, I feel as if you can sort of game plan for that. And I think that's what Morgan State did. Now, I don't think that other teams outside of North Carolina Central have the defense that Morgan State has. I mean, Howard, they put up some good numbers. The game, of course, my game of the week, it was a little bit shaky what I saw against Norfolk. I think North Carolina Central has the second best defense in the MEAC outside of Morgan State. So I don't think that they'll see the same type of challenge, but you're right. This is Buddy Pugh's last game against North Carolina Central. This is his last stand. He's always had something up his sleeve, like you said last week, against North Carolina Central. So I think that South Carolina State watched this game and they were sort of like, we got something to work on. We got something to work with. Let's see what we got going on. Birdman hand rub, let's see what's really going on.
Birdman, they're cooking up. Let them cook. Let them cook, as we like to say. I mean, if you can hold Central to only 79 rushing yards and 2.4 rushing yards per carry for the team stats, that's crazy. Central has never been pulled like that before. So I don't know if we're starting to see a Central team that's maybe depleting in how bad they really want this championship. I mean, I hope not. I mean, Morgan State almost had you figured out. Personally, to me, they could have kept they could have kept the interception. If that fumble would have never happened on Quincy Hall, I think we'll be talking about a completely different game. This man was already out 30 yards, just got tripped up and fell and lost the ball on the ground. He would have been gone. There was nobody on Central's team that was holding him or stopping him. He shot out like a bat out of hell. Morgan, let me tell you, Morgan State's backfield had nothing on Central. And Central has probably one of the most talented offensive lines that I've seen in a minute. But Morgan State, that backfield, though, running backs, running straight through Central. And I think that's kind of worrisome. They play South Carolina State next week. South Carolina State is a little iffy on their weapons as well. But if you want to play that sloppy and your defense is the only one to capitalize on whatever mistakes that South Carolina State makes, it's going to be hard for them to get into the red zone, because I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to win a game only kicking field goals against South Carolina State. Touchdowns have to be put on the board. This game against Morgan State was just a little too close to comfort for me.
I totally agree. Like, I want North Carolina Central to sort of start to get some definitive wins, but at the same time, I sort of do like the parity. I sort of do like the allure of, okay, like they are in these dog fights, but they're winning. I mean, as like a fan, I want to see the close games. But as someone that wants to see North Carolina Central in the Celebration Bowl against FAMU and have the best possible matchup, they got to handle business, because I think that they easily could have scored more against that Morgan State offense, because the offense was getting off the field too quick. I thought the defense would get tired out. So I thought that North Carolina Central would score more, but that just simply didn't happen. So we'll see what happens. I think this is the toughest defense they'll face until they get to a Celebration Bowl against FAMU, whose defense is very stout. So we'll see what happens. But my game of the week was Norfolk State versus Howard. Howard won 27-23 in a game that was way more competitive than I thought it would. Finally got me a good game of the week. It is amazing. It was a great broadcast, a lot of great stuff going on. It came down to those final seconds, a lot of pivotal moments. But first, before I talk about the game, I have to talk about who was highlighted at the game. So the 1993 Howard Bison football team, Arielle, was spotlighted. And they are one of the best HBCU football teams in history. They went 11-0. They were undefeated, led by who we now know as the ESPN analyst, Jay Walker. Like, I honestly didn't know how great this team was. Of course, being in HBCU media, you know about it, and with Jay Walker comes that allure. But I wrote an article about it on Clutch Points when Howard released it. They were announcing that, when Howard announced that they were honoring them at the homecoming game. And Arielle, you know, we talk a lot about Eddie Robinson. We talk a lot about Steve McNair. The fact that Jay Walker and his Howard team beat Steve McNair twice in 1992 and in 1993 in some shootouts, including that 1993 game where Steve McNair went crazy. Jay Walker didn't have that great of a game, but Steve McNair was Steve McNair. Threw for 1 touchdown, ran for 3 touchdowns. That sounds like a Davius Richards stat line. I'm just saying. That sounds a lot like Davius Richards. I'll leave that there. But the fact that they were able to beat Steve McNair and they had a shootout with A&T that they won, Jay Walker orchestrates a game-winning touchdown. Like, they were getting in these close games. They were winning these close games. Like, it's crazy. And it was amazing to see that team highlighted, because sometimes you'll see a 1970 team that's highlighted, and 1960s, even like the 1980s. And we weren't born when they were doing their thing, but I thought it was really dope just to see that, because of just the greatness that that team displayed. And I honestly think that from what I saw this weekend, that Howard has the opportunity to do something similar. Will they go undefeated with this new MAC schedule? No, they won't. All right. And how they played against Norfolk? Probably not. But at the same time, I do think this Howard team has something special. So they didn't have that great of a first half. Their first half wasn't special. So Norfolk really played well going into halftime. They had 115 rushing yards. They held Howard to 28 rushing yards. Norfolk State had 235 total yards, and Howard had 153. Norfolk was 6 of 11 on third downs. Howard was all 4. That's not typically how you win games, because you're gonna have to make it on third down. You're gonna have to keep the chains moving, and Howard just simply could not do it. They had a touchdown in the first half, but at the same time, Norfolk just was pushing the rock, like they were making it happen. I really like Otto Coons, Arielle. Otto Coons is, of course, the quarterback for Norfolk. I think he's really good. I hate that he's in a situation where they're losing right now. They've won some really cool games. They beat Towson, they beat Hampton, and he had a good showing in those games. But he's very talented. I think he has a great arm. I think he's a great quarterback. He makes a lot of great decisions. And honestly, he had a couple opportunities to really beat Howard at the end, but we'll talk about that in a second. But back to Howard. Howard had 2 turnovers, including, and Arielle, you're going to be like, yep, we talk about it all the time, Quinn Williams. He threw an interception at the end of the first quarter that led to a Norfolk State rushing touchdown by Kavon King. And you talk about it all the time. He has to really, work on his decision making. The throw he made, I don't know why he made that throw. It was clearly an overthrow. I thought for a second he was playing for Norfolk. I was like, oh, he gonna run for the touchdown? Oh, wait a minute, no, that's the wrong team. Because I'm like, who are you throwing it to at this point, sir? So, I got love for Quentin Williams, but he has to get better in that, especially if you're trying to beat North Carolina Central and take Eden James to the Celebration Bowl. Okay, because we can do some stories about that if he go. Okay, you got Edrin James gonna come down to the Celebration Bowl. We're trying to see that if North Carolina Central don't make it. So he needs to work on that because North Carolina Central gonna pick the ball off. They showed us that, but they kept fighting. Howard kept fighting, and they won in epic fashion after they were stopped. Howard won in epic fashion after halftime, and they really started to get some things together. So they held Norfolk to only 6 points in the second half, and both of Norfolk's points were field goals. And Howard, meanwhile, scored 18 points, including the go-ahead touchdown. They finished the game with 375 total yards. Now, granted, it wasn't a defensive type of game like North Carolina Central and Morgan State because Norfolk State had 358. So, they were going tit for tat. It was a close game like that. So the box score does indicate how the game was. But Quentin Williams threw a short pass to Jared Hunter. That Hunter took 15 yards to the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown that energized that homecoming crowd. They were going crazy, Arielle. It was a really nice crowd. I'm pretty sure ESPN didn't do them justice with how loud they were, how excited they were to see Howard jump out to that lead because they had to come back and make it happen. But I'll tell you what, Arielle, I'll tell you what I heard on ESPN broadcast from that Howard crowd. Oh, they were singing Sexy Red, though. You know what I'm saying? They were singing them some Sexy Red. They were rapping Sexy Red so loud. So I heard that on the ESPN broadcast. But I'm going to tell you what, though. What was a little bit louder than them rapping Sexy Red word for word was what happened when Kenny Gallup Jr., that NFL prospect, got the interception that effectively ended the game. Because with HBCU football and really college football in general, the other team always has the opportunity to win the game after you get a go-ahead touchdown, a go-ahead field goal. They'll get the ball back, and then they have the opportunity to go down there and go for the win or go for the tie. So Norfolk had a great 51-yard kickoff return from Dylan West. And on the first play of the drive, Arielle, Norfolk State's quarterback, we talked about him, Otto Coombs, overthrew Kevin King, who was wide open. If he catches that ball, Arielle, they run it for a touchdown. Howard got to get the ball back and go all the way back down the field and score. Because that would have been a touchdown. Because King had separation. All King had to do was catch that ball. He could have ran it in. Now, maybe if he caught it, he would have fell down and they would have been up in the red zone. But I think if he catches that, Norfolk gets the touchdown and they likely win the game. But Coombs overthrew it. The power in his throw really worked against him. So I honestly, I was like, oh man, Howard, what you gonna do? What's gonna happen? But here's the thing, later on in that drive, Kenny Gallup Jr., Coombs threw it perfectly. He threw it. It was right there, on the 1 yard line. You had one guy, he was trying to catch it, but then Gallup just snatched the thing. They had a little jump ball situation. They were tugging on it. Gallup ripped it out. It like the ball careens on the ground. He gets up, take off his helmet. He yeah, I did that. Because he did it because they won the game because of his defense. And I think Gallup, that's a highlight play. That play might get him in the NFL because that was amazing. We talk about Travis Hunter when it comes to college football. What I saw from Gallup, how he jumped up and snatched that ball out the air, that's NFL talent. And Gallup is going down in the history books off of that because that was an epic homecoming. And I think that's going to put a period on what's going to be an amazing season in the MEAC for Howard. We'll see what happens against North Carolina Central. Of course, they play on November the 11th. And of course, we're all circling that game on our calendar. We want to see that game. But I think that Howard, they showed me that they're ready for primetime. They can go to the Celebration Bowl. They have talent. But I just want to see them really, truly put it together. But I got to say this real quick, Arielle, before I turn over to you. We talked about Eden James. We talked about how Eden James, he is that guy. He has just NFL aspirations. He can make it. His father, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Edgerrin James, like he's living up to the family name. But he only had 8 carries for 20 yards. Now, granted, he did get great yardage in receiving. He had 1 reception for 45 yards that he turned in for a touchdown. It was a screen pass. He made it happen. Like Eden is super quick and he can catch the ball. So that's an encouraging sign. Like he can be a running back that can go out there and be a receiver. But it was a very relatively quiet game. Jay Walker said that, man, Eden like really cemented his legend at Howard with that 45-yard screen pass. And I'm like, yeah, that's something that the folks will remember. But the game itself, I wanted a Northwestern-esque game from Eden. And I understand, like, I like to celebrate what I see, but I just expected a little bit more. I want to see a little bit more. I want to see him definitely go for over 100 yards against Delaware State next week. And I definitely want to see him have some signature plays in the signature game against North Carolina Central if they do want to win and not get blown out like they did last year. But overall, I just think in general that it's some good energy around Howard. And I don't think that they're going to overtake the greatness of what that 1993 team was. But I think 30 years later, they have a team that really can compete for an HBCU national championship.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can ever, unwrite the history of what started you in the first place. I mean, that 1993 team, I know we talked about them a little bit last year when we were going down our Hall of Fame list and on our road to the Celebration Bowl, of course. And it's amazing that they were able to be highlighted. And I was like, yeah, we can't forget. I know we say a lot about, the homecomings. We couldn't forget the infamous, and I can say that truthfully, the infamous Howard homecoming that they are. Shout out to them, homecoming power, let me tell you, because like you said, this was not Quentin Williams' best game. He did actually have 2, in fact, 45-yard touchdown passes, which I am extremely proud of. And I think those 2 plays ultimately contributed, besides Kenny Gallup, into this win, because Quentin Williams isn't really known for taking those shots down the field or even being that kind of meticulous quarterback to even see down the field like that, to even have those kind of plays. So the fact that his mindset was just completely different from what we usually see out of Quentin Williams was amazing to me. And I do kind of agree with you that it probably would have made a difference just to see Eden James more a little bit on the field, but I think they did what they had to do. And I think the person that we really aren't acknowledging, that really started the drives and started the momentum for Howard, is their kicker. Because their kicker was the one that mostly got them on the board in the first place. Like, shout out to my man, Aaron Bickerton. If it was not for you, Howard would have never saw the board until maybe Quinn Williams decided, let's throw a touchdown pass. If it wasn't for this kicker, and I think that's the underlying message, that if Quentin Williams cannot do it, his special teams or anybody else around him will. Like you say, he has the weapons for it, but Quentin Williams is just notorious for either finding himself in an interception position or just not being able to read the field well. I think he did absolutely amazing. I do want to give him some kind of praise throughout this game. This should have been an easier game, like you said, than what was broadcasted and what we had saw. But they're 1-0 now, so I really don't think it matters. And they play Delaware State next week. As we saw, South Carolina State ran right through them in their first in-conference win. I'm so happy for Buddy Pugh and them. But this is just going to Howard 2-0, and I don't think we're really going to see Eden James really put on a show going against Delaware State. I mean, of course, you want to do your best, but it's Delaware State. Sorry, Delaware State. It's just not your time. It's not your season. Everybody has a time in the season for themselves. To me, this was a really good game, probably the game that I should have chose if I just would have had more faith in Norfolk State, but it's okay. I got the really good defensive battle in Central and Morgan State. But listen, that game of the week, that's a homecoming game right there. I can't say the most for A&T. Our homecoming is coming up in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I will not be there. But this was one of those games that I wish I would have watched. I'm super duper proud of what Howard could do, and hopefully this poses as great competition on November 11th. We'll see what happens towards then about who may win this battle, because honestly, it's going to be an offensive battle between Central and Howard more than it is defensively. If they can get on that level, which I don't see that anything happening. But Quentin Williams, really great game, a little sloppy, but a really, really great game to have some type of a comeback and have some type of faith in his team that maybe we can do it this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that Howard is gonna be, in. I think Howard is really gonna be in contention. I honestly, really do. I think that they can make it. Like just from what I'm seeing, how they competed against Eastern Michigan, how they competed against Northwestern. And I know that the Harvard game was aberration, but Harvard is a really good FCS team this year. And I think that that shows you that FCS thing, that's a made up thing because how they play two FBS teams better than Harvard. I think that just throws the FBS thing out the window because it depends on the players that you have and how you're coached. But I think Howard, that they can do it. I'm not, it's too early to say they'll beat North Carolina Central, but if they did, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that the only loss in North Carolina Central schedule will likely be against Howard. But we'll see, and I don't want to make too early predictions. I want to wait to see what happens in the games, if there's any injuries, if some players, they don't start playing up to their potential. But I definitely think Howard's like that, and it's exciting because I think that having a really good Howard football team makes the culture better because there's so much just magnetism around the culture of Howard, from the alumni to the celebrities that come down to the just alumni in general that are a part of just the school's history. I just believe that having a good Howard team is good for all of us. Like having a good A&T team is good for all of us. Having a good FAMU team is good for all of us, especially with the legacies that they have. So I'm really excited to see what Howard does as we move forward towards the end of the season. But let's get into our headlines, Arielle. So I wanted to talk about Jackson State versus Mississippi Valley. Now, they won the game in dominant fashion. They won 24-6. However, Coach T.C. Taylor, Arielle, was not pleased at all with the output that his team put in at the end of the game because Jackson State allowed Mississippi Valley State to put together a two-play, 97-yard drive that ended in a 52-yard run by DeFabian Fant that resulted in a touchdown. Now it's 24-6. TC Taylor, he wanted it to be a shutout. He didn't want no scores. He didn't want no points. He wanted a dominant victory, and he was heated. He had some post-game comments. He didn't wait to get to the presser. He had some post-game comments right there on the field that was captured by WJTV anchor Davian Adelstein. And I want to read it because he got a little bit angry, and there's some words we can't say. He said this. He said, it's the same deal, man. We can't close out games for some reason. They get a cheap touchdown right there at the end, and then I think they were backed up on the minus 2-yard line. The offense had 3 or 4 turnovers today, but we got to learn how to finish games right now. We're still growing as a football team, but I mean unacceptable. Like how I read it didn't do it justice. He had a lot of emotion there. And I think, number one, that says a lot about the standard that he's holding this Jackson State team to, which I think that's amazing. And I'm glad that even in wins, there's something to build upon, even in wins. I do think that that was wild that they gave up that just crazy run like that. But at the same time, I wouldn't be too upset about it because we already know when you're up that much, I understand you want to be dominant and hold the team to 0 points. But if they get 6 points, it is what it is. I mean, because sometimes you let your guard down. Like they're ready to move on to the next game. That's just human nature. But if he can coach it out of them and say, no, like we're going to go full 60 minutes. We're not going to beat them down like 2-3 quarters and that's it. I think that's good. But it's a lot of criticism of Jackson State because I think Jackson State is the school that everyone wants to see fail. Because, of course, the Deion effect, where like people want to see Jackson State crumble and Colorado succeed. I think that's a lot of that. And also a lot of folks think that Jackson State, they're cocky. They was front running with Deion. So now y'all going to struggle when Deion leaves. But my thing is that TC Taylor is a great coach. I think he's had a very respectable first season. I think that he's going to grow that program and continue to bring that program success. He's an alumni. He's invested. He has skin in the game. So I think that Jackson State really can make some things happen. But one of the criticisms, Arielle, that a lot of folks were saying is that, oh, y'all still growing? It's week 8. Y'all still growing? And I want just to ask you, Arielle, because I thought it was a little bit crazy, that talking point. Like, is it wrong for him to say that his team is still growing at this point in the season? Do you think they should be a fully fine-tuned product at this point of the season?
Honestly, I there's so many mixed opinions that I have specifically about this game. I mean, like I said, a win is a win. What how you win, and how you win and how you lose, like it matters at the end of the day. I mean, it was obviously a blowout, 21-6, and I think it wasn't a matter of that his team gave up on the play. I could see kind of some sense of maybe sportsmanship or showmanship. Maybe to them it wasn't important, and maybe just out of level of respect to shut out completely their opponent. Maybe they didn't want to do that to Mississippi Valley. Like they've been having a terrible season. One of those seasons where it's just like, you're kind of disappointed, maybe not having pride in your college, and that can be upsetting. So maybe in some light, somehow trying to be optimistic, they were trying to show some sportsmanship and was like, let them score, let's not completely shut them out, let's be respectful of them. And in that sense, I can completely see it, and I wouldn't be, quite frankly, mad at that. I don't understand necessarily the idea or just the urgency of trying to be completely dominant right now. But on TC Taylor's part as a head coach, I can understand that you are the successor of a Hall of Famer and actually a productive coach at Colorado right now. And like you said, a lot of people did expect you to lose and not have a great season. I am really one of those people, quite frankly. Y'all can go ahead and run the tapes. I own what I said. I said what I said, and I meant it. I really thought they were going to be trash, but they're not. And in some instances, we can see that they have a little bit of quarterback problems. I think they do have really nice players on their team, not as much as the dynamic weapons that Coach Prime took with him or some people that had left, but they are a really great team, and I can see them contending until they have, until it gets late, and then it's like, well, FAMU, we already know is going to take it all the way. But I personally don't think that there is anything more that they could learn physically to win this game. I think at Jackson State, from the 2 years, I say this in quotations, or 3 years in quotations, that Deion Sanders was there, that they had learned how to play the game, what it takes to win a game, the kind of plays they need to run, how to read the defense, how to read the offense, to study film. I think they learned the necessary basics of football. But when it comes to finishing a game or being dominant or just trying to, I think it's more of a personal thing to me with TC Taylor of being the best. Your team is already good. Matter of fact, they could be greater in a sense. But I think for him personally, it's to show the world that, hey, we can still do shutouts. We still have a great quarterback. I'm still a good coach. And I don't think you should put your personal vendettas of this is how our team has to be on your team. Because honestly, to me, I don't necessarily see the I don't see how bad it could really be to let a team score 6 points late in the fourth quarter when the game is about to end. I mean, do I want them to score it? No, but if they did, why not? It's not like they have the time to run it back, honestly. I mean, there's nothing more they could do. It's not like they're going to come up with what? It was 21-6. So they're not going to come up with 15 points automatically with a minute left in the game. Like I don't think that's humanly possible, even with some kind of football magic 6-man stuff that they might try to attempt. But to me, I think it is something personal with TC Taylor, is trying to prove something this season that the men don't see. And I think that's a personal conversation that you have with your players. Like, this is just personally how I feel. I don't believe there's any more physical outward appearance growing that they have to do on the field. Maybe something inward where it's just like we have to prove, because there are people looking down on us, and there are stipulations and expectations that are on Jackson State, which there are, to still continue to be a good team, continue to win more games, continue to be back on the top in all sorts of stats, and to continue to develop greatness within their program, it's okay for that not to be this year. Let's do it in the off season. Let's do it over camp. I just think it was a little dramatic, if we can say, of TC Taylor to put on or say this quote about a team that end up winning the game. Showmanship or not, work ethic or not, I think Jackson State isn't doing bad right now, and that's the lesson that he should take. You had a better season than what people thought. Take that and run with it. Do better next season. It doesn't have to be right now. I mean, I get his frustrations as a coach, but to me, it's really not that.
I definitely feel that. And what I'll say to add to it is that I understand just the standard. I understand the standard that you have to uphold as a coach because you can't get comfortable. And they're not at the top right now. They're still, number two in the East. So, there's a standard that he's still trying to uphold. But I don't think that for the folks that are like, oh, they're still growing. Like, why they still growing? Why you guys still grow? You grow after every win and loss. Like, we grow after everything in life. We grow day to day in real life. So in football, like, you don't think that there are teams that can't grow? You don't think Georgia's not growing? Like, they're undefeated. You don't think Georgia's not growing? You don't think that Notre Dame's not growing? You don't think that Colorado, especially how I lost to Stanford, you don't think that they're not growing? Like, we all grow after these experiences. And I think that as a coach, you have to tell your players, we can't be complacent. Yes, we beat a local rival. Like, they've been playing games for years, and Jackson State has always dominated that matchup. But our standard is that we should not have allowed them to score a touchdown, especially in garbage time, because we're so good that we shouldn't have allowed that. And I think that that's an admirable message. But I agree that there should be a celebration to a certain point of where they are, because I know that the ultimate goal, and in sports, is singularly focused, where we're trying to win a championship. And the discourse around sports is, how many rings have you won? How many championships did you win? Like, what'd you do in college? Like, oh, you didn't win a championship? Or were you that good of a player? I know that that's often the conversation, and that's how we boil down legacies and careers. But I think that sometimes in sports, we have to just appreciate what we see. And what I appreciate from Jackson State is that TC Taylor got this opportunity, because I was the person, I know a lot of folks disagree with this, but if you remember, we talked about this right as the rumors started to circulate before the SWAC championship last year about, well, should they go with a celebrity coach? Should Jackson State hire Ray Lewis? I know that Ed Reed was a talking point around that before he got to Bethune-Cookman. They were talking about other NFL folks that could come in. But I was like, nah, like, I like TC Taylor. I think that TC Taylor is the guy. And I like the Chennis Berry, TC Taylor as coach. Of course, TC Taylor is different from Chennis Berry, because Chennis Berry, he had the Division I experience, a Division II graduate, had experiences at Division I and Division II. Now he's leading that Benedict powerhouse. You have a TC Taylor that was playing for Jackson State back in the 90s. He has other experiences in the MEAC. He gets the Celebration Bowl with North Carolina Central. He develops some great all MEAC players. Then he gets on that Coach Prime coaching staff. He does a lot of amazing things there. Then he gets the call up to lead those young men. So I think I like those stories. Yeah, it's cool for Deion Sanders, Eddie George situation. Eddie George is different, I know. But at the same time, I just think that we got to give TC Taylor some reverence in general, and Jackson State reverence in general. But I understand that to a certain point, Jackson State, to a lot of people, is the Dallas Cowboys. I sort of get it. Like, that's what they are. Like, it's a lot of people, that's what they are. I see them as Jackson State. I'm pretty sure you see them as Jackson State. But people are like, this is the Cowboys. They think they're so proud. Oh, look at that, you lost. I totally get that. And it's cool, it's funny. But at the same time, for me, I'm just like, I want to see TC Taylor succeed. And I want to see him continue the greatness of that program. And largely, and I will say this, we don't talk about Deion a lot anymore. But the one thing that I want to say is that Jackson State was good before Deion. They were great during Deion. They were great before Deion as well. But I think they have the potential to be great after. But you got to give TC Taylor that opportunity. And that's all I'm saying. Like, he can. I think that he can build this squad. I think that they can be a contender. And it didn't even have to be Deion. Deion got where he needed to be. But if they hired TC Taylor before Deion got there back in 2020, if they hired some other good coaches, they hired a Chennis Berry, if they hired a Sean Gibbs, if they hired some of these other assistants that were doing their thing at these other schools, I think that they could be winning. They could have been contending too. I just think that the discourse around the celebrity coach and, oh, you got to bring in this big time hire, I just think it's sort of made the conversations a little worse because we don't give folks reverence anymore. And that's really just my thought process on sports in general.
Nice sermon, Randall. I almost want to throw my shoe at you. Like, say it again. Say it ain't so. You know, you preaching. You are preaching. Preaching, Randall. Yes.
I'm just telling the truth. I mean, like T. Taylor did.
I mean, you're right. You're right, man. Take TC Taylor. Take this win. Take that you had a better season than what people hope for. Take that you have a better team than what people hope for. Listen, we never know what's going to happen at the end of the season, but right now you guys look good. You guys could be even greater next year. Have fun with it. Roll with it. Blow out the next team. Let's say that. University of Arkansas, blow out the next team. You got 2 chances. You have 2 chances. No touchdowns this next game. I know a high school team that's like that. There was a coach 5 years ago did not believe in executing a touchdown from the other team. He would not allow it. Let's not allow it with UAPB. Let's give him that. Let's give TC Taylor his no touchdown game with UAPB. I think that would be great. But I say just roll with it. You're a great coach. You've been in a great spot to be a great successor next to. Let's just have the rest of a good. Can we all just get along? That the world is literally like at each other's. Can we all just let's just take what we have right now and just let's roll with it. It's all kumbaya right now.
No, that ain't happening, especially in the SWAC. They ain't happening in the SWAC. No, they to the neck after every game, win or lose. That don't happen in the SWAC. Just my observation. I'm not SWAC, but just my observation of covering it. But I just think we got to talk about sports different. We've talked about it for the past 2 years. Like we just got to talk about sports different because I just want to celebrate what I see, and I think that oftentimes sports becomes divisive because it becomes you're not good enough, and then that in turn causes some different type of behaviors and some unrealistic standards, and I think some unrealistic standards from fans, but that gets to a whole other conversation, which that's something else right there.
Yeah, we'll get to another Randall's sermons maybe next week. I'm actually surprised of your game of the week pick this week. So are you staying out of my conference now? Are you done with the MEAC? Can I have it back? Like are you going SWAC this week?
I'm gonna ask you because I'm not going SWAC. I'm not going SWAC, but I'm gonna have to ask you because there's some good games in the MEAC. But getting to the game of the week, I'm going with Tennessee State. Like I told you, going with Tennessee State. And I told you that with Tennessee State, I'm going to be looking for them, to really make it happen and to really see what they can do. They've had an amazing season. They beat down Lincoln University of California 54-0, as they should have. They definitely should have won that game. Tennessee State's riding high. They're entering into week 9. They're 5-2, 5-1 in FCS. But I think the real test of the Eddie George regime is what he does as he closes out these next few weeks in the Big South OVC. Because in the Big South OVC, like they're combined together now and they're playing games against each other. And I want to see if Eddie George can prove his team's dominance over teams that largely aren't all that great. They're middling teams in the conference of the OVC in the Big South. Next week was my game of the week. This week, which is my game of the week, they're playing Lindenwood. So Lindenwood is 3-4 and 1-2 in the Big South OVC. So that, of course, is the game of the week for this week. Next week, they play a very familiar face, Arielle, Charleston Southern. They're 3-4 and 1-2 in the Big South OVC, coached by former Albany State coach Gabe Gardenia. So the coach Gabe for Albany State is down there, and he brought some Albany State players. So essentially, how it's looking, Eddie George about to play Albany State. If you look at the defense, he about to play Albany State defense. He about to play the dirty blue defense because Coach Gabe took a lot of those guys that was on that defense with them to Charleston Southern. So they play Eastern Illinois. So Eastern Illinois is actually a really good team. They're 5-2. They are 1-2 in the Big South OVC, but they're a competitive team. They beat 25th ranked Illinois State 14-13, and they lost narrowly to UT Martin 28-7 in overtime. And remember, UT Martin beat Tennessee State 20-10. So I think that says a lot about the competition that Eastern Illinois can bring in mid-November. But I think it'll be interesting to see how they play that game, because I think that'll be the real test, and that might be my game of the week then. But then they end the season with another very familiar face, Arielle, your game of the week. They end with Tennessee Tech. So Tennessee Tech is 2-5, including that win against South Carolina State that they shouldn't have won, and they're 0-2 in the Big South OVC. So I think that Tennessee State can easily win this schedule out, and the only game that possibly could be a loss is against Eastern Illinois. But if Tennessee State can prove their dominance by beating these teams, I believe that they can secure an FCS playoff spot. And I know strength of schedule, you played all these different teams, and you played UAPB, and they're not good this year. Like, you didn't play competitive folks on the back end of the schedule. Well, on the back end of the schedule, those are conference opponents. So you can't really do much about that. Those are conference games. And UT Martin, how it's looking, I guess we'll see how they finish out. But likely they're going to be the OVC champions. So, we'll see how that works out. But they're pretty sure they can get 2 teams in, because I think if Eddie George, if he and his Tennessee State team, they finish essentially 9-1, because we don't count the Notre Dame game in FCS. If they finish the season 9-1 and then they beat Eastern Illinois as well, and it's a pretty good convincing game, I honestly believe that there's no way they don't make the playoffs. And if they don't make the playoffs, we're going crazy. We're going to be on this radio, on this podcast. I'm writing articles. I'm going up there where the FCS offices is, wherever it's at. We gonna protest, okay? We're gonna write on signs. We're gonna print out a picture of Eddie George and say, put them in the FCS play. Because what? 9-1. Come on, like, say they better not. Like, Eddie George gotta get there, but they better not play with us. You talking about support? Oh, we'll support you. The whole HBCU community will support you with that one, all right? But I want to see them really finish out the season, and I think they have a lot of bright spots. They're a very run-heavy team, which is odd to me, how we're seeing such heavy passing attacks. Draylon Ellis is averaging 90 passing yards a game. And I had to look, I'm like, wait, did I look at that wrong? Did I write that wrong? 90 passing yards a game. He has 2 games, including that Notre Dame game, where he threw under 30 yards. I think that is wild. They have 2 running backs that really lead the pack. They have Jalen Rouse and Jordan Gant. Between them, 100 yards rushing per game. Jalen Rouse, 87 carries for 379 yards this season. Jordan Gant, 79 carries for 356 yards this season. And then defensively, Arielle, they have a linebacker, Monroe Beard III, and defensive lineman Terrell Allen. They're leading the pack. Beard, 80 total tackles, 42 solo, 38 assisted, 3 pass breakups. And then Allen, talking about pressuring the quarterback, he has 36 total tackles, 20 solo, 16 assisted, 9 sacks. So he had 5 sacks before the Lincoln to California game, 4 against Lincoln to California alone, 8 QB hits, 3 forced fumbles. They got some guys. I think the 2 defensive players in Beard and Allen, like, they might get some draft buzz, because those are some top out stats. And we know that these NFL teams, they like defensive guys from HBCU. So I think that they could be one of, like, when it's their time, they could be 2 of Eddie George's first guys that are drafted or signed in the NFL. So I think that Tennessee State has the recipe to make the playoffs. I want to see them deploy a more pass heavy, play calling set in what they do in these games, because I think they're going to need that if they go to the FCS playoffs. But I'm just really interested to see what they do with this game. I think they should beat Lindenwood. If they don't beat Lindenwood and they fall into the trap, Arielle, of how it is with HBCU teams, we cannot beat the PWIs for some reason. Like, if they fall into that trap, I think it says a lot that you got to start back from square one, because there's no reason why they don't go 3-1 or 4-0. That's the expectation. Get them to the playoffs, and then I think next year, you don't got to lecture about the fans being there, because now they're going to believe in you. You don't got to lecture about that. But you got to go either 4-0 or 3-1, because I'll take a loss. I don't know about Tennessee State fans, but if you lose to Eastern Illinois, I'm fine with that. They're a really good team, but don't get blown out. Make it a close game. If you lose by 2 touchdowns, I won't be mad if you're competing, but not no 20, 30 point blowout. No, we're not doing that. Like 14 points or less if you lose. But if you win, give me some competition. So for me, that's my little mini breakdown of Tennessee State. That's my game of the week. I am picking Tennessee State to win.
Yeah, I finally got my game of the week, which I've been waiting for all this time. North Carolina Central versus South Carolina State. We already talked a little bit about North Carolina Central, what they've done in this past week, and we already have 3 MEAC teams that already want to know in conference. And to me personally, this is the MEAC's little rivalry week. We can kind of say for the MEAC, since they don't have any, this is the playoff. This is mostly in conference play for the next 3 or 4 weeks, trying to see who's going to end up on top and end up in the Celebration Bowl. And we already know that we personally just want Central to do it. But Howard comes a close second, and South Carolina State can pull a Rudy. They can have a magical season, maybe have a Cinderella Man season if they continue on this path. South Carolina State played Delaware State, easy blowout, 35-7. They did not score in the first quarter, but then after that, they completely shut out Delaware State, not letting them score anything from the second quarter all the way into the fourth quarter, scoring 21 points alone in the second quarter going into the half. Absolutely amazing for them. Corey Fields Jr., who we're always in and out on, who officially became their quarterback pick going into the third or fourth week of their season. 14 out of 21 in passing attempts, 165 yards, 1 interception. That's always known for Corey Fields Jr. It can never be perfect, but let me tell you, they came out with this win, and their interception was the only thing that gave Delaware State their touchdown. So I can say Buddy Pugh is actually having probably a magical week this week because he decided that, listen, we're going to bring in some fire that nobody decided to see. But at the same time, this is also one of those things that Central has to really look out for because, like I said, they are 2-3 when it comes to South Carolina State. They have lost 1 game, which is back in 2021, with South Carolina State almost ruined their hopeful dreams when it came to going to the championship. To the Celebration Bowl, and that's where Howard almost could have beat them. Howard is back for blood this year, so this is one of those games where Davius Richard has to be on point. There's no reason why you should not be rushing this football. There should be no reason why you should not be taking your shots down the field. This is the time to show what you have against South Carolina State. Doesn't matter if Butter Pugh is retiring or if he just wants to leave the team. This is not time for sentimentals. This is a time to prove that you deserve the Celebration Bowl. That's the only thing that Central has to look out for. This is one of the best matchups in MEAC to me that I've ever seen until we get to November 11th where they eventually play Howard. But we'll see where the standings are in that when we get there. I think in this second week, with everybody playing who they're about to go up against in week 9, South Carolina State against Central, Howard against Delaware, which we already know is going to be a win. They could go 2-0. And then you got Morgan State versus Norfolk. They'll still be behind. But this week is one of those definitive weeks where we will get to see what the stats are looking like, who is going to take that number 1 spot, or who is really on their way to the Celebration Bowl. This game always scares me because for some odd reason, Central always just has a breakdown, especially when it comes to Davius Richards. He is known for having those QB beat pressures, which literally just jolts his nerves and it ends up in an interception or he ends up fumbling the ball. This is where his stats got to go haywire. So I'm very hopeful that they will win, but at the same time, he has to keep his composure in this game and not allow their record or previous games to determine where they land in this following spot going into the third week of what I like to call the little rivalry week playoffs in the MEAC, even though we don't have one. But this can be crucial where they stand after this.
I totally agree. I'm picking North Carolina Central as well. I think that Trey Oliver has this game circled because Buddy Pugh always gets him. And it's all love, but at the same time, like they lost like 2 games last year. They lost to Campbell and they handled business against Campbell, and they lost to South Carolina State. After starting off riding high, then they beat a New Hampshire team that made the playoffs. So we're thinking they can go undefeated, but they lose to Campbell and South Carolina State. So I think that they want to get their get back on South Carolina State to put a pin in the South Carolina State Buddy Pugh, North Carolina, South Carolina rivalry. But I'm really looking at Davius Richard. I really want to see him. I think we got to see some more arm talent from him because he has it. But I think we got to see some more from him because I think that now the tape is out what Morgan State did. So I think that they're going to really try to stop that run. Sometimes teams can't because Davius Richard is just that good. But I think that he's going to have to do almost like Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar now is starting to pick his poison when it comes to should I run or should I pass? And we see him scrambling around to get that time to throw it to his guys. I think that Davius should be watching that because we see Lamar as the prototype for the running quarterback in this day and age. We see him now improving as a passer and showing his passing chops. But I got to see Davis Richard do that, because I think that South Carolina State will force him to do that. And if they force him to do that, he has to make him pay. But I'm still picking North Carolina Central. I think you're totally right. But if Buddy P won this game, Arielle, I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it at all, because the dean of HBCU football going to give him an F grade one last time if that's the case, all right? Like, I'm just saying it could happen. But let's go through these quick picks real quick. So let's go on and make it happen. So Prairie View versus FAMU. It's FAMU's homecoming, Arielle. It's going to be aired on ESPNU. Who you got for this game?
Of course, I got FAMU. This is an automatic win for them. I mean, Prairie View has been proven to be much competition and causing some kind of upsets when it comes to them along the way, especially when we look at their past games. But I think FAMU has this in the bag.
Yeah, I think FAMU has it as well. So Grambling versus Bethune-Cookman. So Grambling?
Yeah, Bethune-Cookman took a really heavy hit this past week. So we're going to see what Grambling can do with them.
Okay, so we said Howard is going to beat Delaware State. So we said that. Now, here's the real question, all right, Arielle. So North Carolina A&T versus Hampton. Who you got?
Honestly, at this point, anything is possible. I'm pretty scared right now. I mean, Hampton is really, really no competition to me against this North Carolina A&T team. But, for the sake of love and almost being homecoming season, I'm going to go with North Carolina A&T. But unfortunately, this is going to be a close game. Not the way that I want it to be, but it will be a close game.
Hampton's going to win this game easy, because, listen, North Carolina A&T ain't Monmouth and they ain't Delaware, because Monmouth and Delaware beat them down. But I'm telling you, they not that. Hampton going to get them, because when Hampton play HBCUs, they get about the bed a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? They playing Knuck If You Buck. They playing Set It Off by Boosie. They be ready to go when they play HBCUs. So, I think Hampton's going to win that game for sure. All right, so Morgan State versus Norfolk. I think it's going to be a good game. Who you got?
I think it's going to be a very tough game, and I'm very scared to say my pick, because I really just dunk on them the whole time. But I think Morgan State actually might pull out a win with this one.
I think so too. I think Morgan State wins. The defense is crazy, but I would love to see how Otto Coons adjusts, because I think he's a really great quarterback. So Jackson State versus UAPB. So we said Jackson State gonna win that game.
Yeah, this is their blowout game. This is their no touchdown game that TC Taylor can have. It has to be a no touchdown game that TC Taylor can have. Please.
So we're under one touchdown on this game. We're under one.
Yes.
Okay.
Under one. Under one. None at all, according to TC Taylor. None at all. Under one.
None at all. None at all. So Mississippi Valley State versus Alcorn. So Alcorn's winning this game?
Of course. I'm so sorry, Mississippi Valley. I have friends that went there. I respect you with all my heart. It's just not your seat. It's not your time, and that's okay. It's not your time.
Ain't been their time since 1985. I tell you, it's crazy. Not cold. Just ain't been that time in a minute. Hopefully one day it will be. I'm definitely room for them to do that. Magic City Classic, Alabama A&M versus Alabama State. Ricky Smiley gonna be in the building. Alabama State alum. They doing a radio show down there. I saw that. So it's gonna be a time. The biggest classic in the nation. So who you got for this one?
Man, I love this matchup. Two teams that have been giving Jackson State the works. I freaking love it. Honestly, this is tough, but I think Alabama State has this one.
Okay, so Arielle, so I want you to tell me who you think who I think is going to win based on this sound.
You see, I'm excited, man. I'm ready to go.
I really hate that you record now. It was cute, and then now I'm just we're never going to hit the end of this sound.
No,
we're never going to hit the end of this sound. You really think Alabama A&M is going to put on the show?
Yes, for sure. I think Alabama A&M is going to put on the show. I need you, Arielle. Here's what I need you to do. Okay, homecoming's coming up. I need you to have faith in your fellow Aggie, because November the 4th is coming up, because Connor Maynard is an Aggie too. He's a dog, okay? You know what I'm saying? One of the better quarterbacks in the history of A&T. So have faith that his team is going to win. He a dog, okay? He got Quincy Casey. He got guys down there. If he let Quincy Casey play, I mean, he got other quarterbacks. I think they win this game. I think it'll be close though, because I think Alabama State's defense is going to keep them in the game. But I think Alabama A&M wins, because Alabama State does not have an offense. They shouldn't have won that game against Jackson State. They had the bye week last week. They should have won a game. They should not have won a game against Jackson State. That was a very weird game. And Jason Brown, if he makes that pass, if he doesn't, overthrow his guy, almost throw an interception, that's a win for Jackson State, because they could have won that game. but Alabama A&M is going to win this game, and then we'll see what next year looks like when Eddie Robinson has the opportunity to find a competent quarterback and maybe a competent offensive coordinator.
I need you to play that sound when you don't win this pick next week. I just want the audience to know that all that barking, that ain't the same bark that we got over at the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. I just want you change colors on us. Ain't nothing like that blue and gold. But that ain't got nothing to do with this game. Go ahead and give me my last pick, Randall. I just want you to play that sound.
Well, let me just say this real quick before we go to the last pick, Arielle. It'll be easy to play in a loss because after he did that, he lost to Southern. So it'll be pretty easy to play it in a loss because that's what he did after he did the sound. Okay, so Texas Southern versus Southern. Southern? Are we picking Southern?
We can pick Southern. Southern's been doing some monster stomps lately. They're coming up in the world.
I mean, like after that FAMU game, I mean, they got some teams that they really can beat. I mean, we'll see. I still don't have faith in them. This is the SWAC West matchup. I don't have faith that they're going to get it together. And Texas Southern looked very competitive against FAMU. So I don't know. Like this could be a Texas Southern upset. I'm picking Southern just to be safe. But I just think that, I mean, Dooley needs to win this game. He needs to win a couple other games. Because after this game, like we said, like you're facing Alcorn, you're facing Grambling, you're facing Prairie View, of course, Grambling in the Bayou Classic, you're facing Prairie View. So you're facing the other contenders. So I think it's just going to be 3 losses going to the end of the season. So you better get Texas Southern while you can. Just saying, Andrew Body's not coming out there because he's injured. He's out for the season. So might as well get him. So, you know.
I guess so. On to our big and bad Division 2, where the best games are always held. We're going to start with the CIAA. Winston-Salem versus Johnson C. Smith. Who you got, Randall?
We can go through this so quick because the CIAA been boring. I'm not going to hold you. CIAA been real boring. Johnson C. Smith got this game. The CIAA has been so boring. Like, people talk about CIAA. Like, John C. Smith got that game against Winston-Salem easy.
I can see that. Livingstone versus St. Augustine's. What's your pick?
So Livingstone, St. Augustine is going through it. So Livingstone has got this game, and I want to see this though. Will Antonio Carmody become their next head coach? I know nothing. I have no sourcing, no nothing. But he did join that coaching staff as a defensive analyst. So I'm just saying, like I wonder if that's on the horizon because that would be interesting.
Well, you know, Division 2 has a pattern of always sneaking the greats in. So they sneak him in one way or the other. That just might be an open door to something that he always wanted to do. So Elizabeth City versus Bowie State. Who you got?
Hey, big shout out to Elizabeth City because they beat Virginia State. Like Virginia State's no longer undefeated. 17-16. So Elizabeth City might say, you know what, we big and bad. Let's beat Bowie too. So I'm picking Elizabeth City to beat Bowie because I did not see them beating Virginia State, and they legitimately beat them. So I think Bowie's struggling. I think Elizabeth City wins this one.
You know, we always love a good game, and that's one of the games I wish I would have been able to see. Next, we got Fayetteville State versus Shaw. Randall, who you got?
Fayetteville State. We'll see. I could be wrong on this one, but Fayetteville State can win this game.
You know, you've led me wrong before, but you know, I trust you now. I trust you now. So, you know, we'll see in this pick. I'm just keeping it real, you guys. Virginia Union versus Bluefield State. One of my favorite D2s that you've put me on, and I'm so grateful that you made me acknowledge them in this time. Who you got?
So Virginia Union, Jada Byers is back. So like, I think Virginia Union, this could be an easy win. Like shout out to Coach Coaxum at Bluefield, but they got some work to do. I think Virginia Union wins this one, and it sets us up for a very interesting matchup between Virginia State and Virginia Union, especially for the CIAA championship in the East. That representative is going to be there. The CIAA championship in the South, the representative is going to be there in the South. So it's going to be a big game. So I think that they run through this game, and then we're talking about next week.
I love it. And speaking of no longer being an undefeated team, you got Virginia State going against Lincoln University of Pennsylvania. Who do you have? And this is our last game also in the CIAA.
Virginia State should win this game. I don't think that Lincoln has the weapons to pull off an upset here. I think they have a great quarterback. I think that they could. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just think with Virginia State, they got caught slipping. So I think that they're going to be on high alert against Lincoln, and they're going to do what they need to do. They're going to do what they need to do to get that win, because also that is a divisional matchup. So if they lose that game, they basically handed Virginia Union like the spot in the championship. So they need to handle that business for sure. So I think that Virginia State gets that win.
I'm believing in you, Randall. On to the SIAC, the SIAC. We start with Clark Atlanta, who just most recently had their homecoming, a great time, versus Tuskegee. Who you got?
So what wasn't great was that score against Central State. So that wasn't great.
Yeah, that wasn't too great. But it's never with Clark Atlanta. It's never about the game. It's literally about the international food they have, from hibachi to crab boils to all the richness that us public HBCUs never get to experience. But the AUC always holds it down. But it's not about the score. It's never about the score. But tell me who's your pick as they play Tuskegee into this coming week.
Well, for what I've learned about Tuskegee, it is about the score for them, and they're going to win this game going away because Slater ain't there no more. Because if Coach Willie Slater was there, if they didn't fire him, I would have picked Clark Atlanta real quick. But no, Tuskegee is going to wipe the floor with Clark Atlanta. They're struggling right now. They beat Tuskegee, the world's coming to an end. It's either if Clark Atlanta beats Tuskegee, either the world's coming to an end or Tupac coming back. One of the two. Okay, I'm just saying. Tupac can show up at the game. You know what I'm saying? It just at that point.
I mean, supposedly we found his murderer. Supposedly, but all conspiracies are welcome. All conspiracies are welcome. On to one of.
I want to just say this. I want to be funny. Tupac told him who killed him. Go ahead.
If Tupac really walked into the police station, it was like, y'all really thought this man really killed me for real? Y'all thought it was gonna be that easy? The dead really coming to life. That's crazy. I don't need to see that right now. I cannot see that. I can't. On to one of the next greatest homecomings that I've ever been to. Spell House is this week. I'm so freaking excited to be there. And of course I will be there because once you go to Spell House, you can never stop going. Morehouse versus Kentucky State. Who do you got?
Morehouse is going to get their first win during homecoming.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so. Kentucky State, they have a really great coach, Coach Huggins, but I just don't think they're ready right now. I just don't see it for them. I think that Morehouse wins this game. I don't think it'll be like a blowout or anything like that. I think it'll be a competitive game, which is good for homecoming sometimes to get the folks going. But I see Morehouse winning, and that'll be good for them. They'll get a chance to end homecoming on a very high note, and then we'll see if they bring Drake or somebody out for the concert. We'll see what happens.
Listen, Atlanta, anything can happen. Atlanta is literally like magical, especially when you have homecoming in session. Anything can literally happen. But we got Lane College versus Central State, who literally just dominated Clark Atlanta. So who you got?
Central State's going to win this game. Lane got beat in a shootout by Virginia University of Lynchburg, okay? They got beat in a shootout, like 45-42, all right? So they feel a lot of pain because Fort Valley also lost to Virginia University of Lynchburg in 2018. So we'll talk about them in a second, Virginia University of Lynchburg in a second. But, yeah, Lane is struggling. I don't know what's going on with Lane. I think Central State wins this game. Coach Porter gets them another win, and they might be maybe 5-5 or something like that. We'll see what happens at the end of the season, but they're gonna get this win easy.
All right, Edward Waters versus Allen. Who you picking?
This might be the game of the weekend. You got two very potent offenses. David Wright at Allen. He's a great quarterback. He makes some very questionable decisions. He's not necessarily Desmond Ritter-ish, but at the same time, he makes questionable decisions as well, like Desmond Ritter, as you know, as a Falcons fan, Arielle. You have Edward Waters, Jaron Russell. He is a very potent passer. Already has made history with the most passing yards in the modern era for Edward Waters. The AME Classic, I think Edward Waters wins this game. They're currently on a 5-game winning streak. They played a really close game against Fort Valley. They beat Tuskegee in overtime for their homecoming on last week. Then this past weekend, they beat Albany State on a last-second touchdown. So, the three blue bloods, Fort Valley, Albany, and Tuskegee, and you're able to knock them off. And then Savannah State, they had their run in the SIAC before they went to the MEAC. So they were a good team in the conference as well back in the olden days. So the fact that you were able to compete with Fort Valley and knock off three of those four teams that really were in the conference making it happen, that says a lot about Edward Waters. They're going to win this game, but you might see basketball numbers. You might see 67-64, 57-54. That might be the type of game you see because both of these offenses, they're going to make sure the lights on the scoreboard work for sure.
Listen, I honestly thought they were going to sit Desmond Ritter this weekend against the Bucks because that last week performance was absolutely trash and terrible. Some of the throws and just the QBIQ is literally not there. It's not, the lights aren't clicking with Desmond Ritter. So the fact that we still came out with this win, shout out to Koo, our only great player. I mean, it was
No, we
tight
got
in his
more than
day.
that. We got more than
I mean,
that.
we do. It was tight in his day. I will, I would say that. I'm just saying the only reliable player that I trust is Young Koo. I don't trust nobody else on the Falcons. I especially don't trust Desmond Ritter, who I stand to this day should not have been our QB1. But that's just my opinion. Shout out to
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota. I still love you.
Well, let me say this: like, you won't have to deal with him much longer when Shador comes. You won't have to deal with him much longer.
And Atlanta has never really been smart when it comes to picks. Like our last pick with Bijan Robinson, like that was literally just a lucky pick. Like the fact, I don't think, like logically it makes sense now, but I don't really think they were really thinking that he was really going to have us as a successful rookie season as he's having. Like I don't think that was really the case, but it is what it is. On to our next game, Albany State versus Miles. Who do you have?
This is a tough one because I want Albany State to beat Miles, because if Albany State beats Miles and then we go on next week on the 4th of November and we beat Albany, that puts us in a really good place to make the championship if Miles then beats Tuskegee. So we need them to beat up on each other as we play Lynchburg, so because will Benedict beat us again in the championship? Maybe. They probably will. I mean, they're really good. But at the same time, I want us to make the championship. That's a good benchmark and barometer, and you never know what can happen. Puncher's chance. I think Miles is going to win the game. Like they have an amazing team. Offensive line is nasty. Defensive line is nasty. You have Klein Peter as the quarterback. Reminds a lot of us in that SIAC, space of Bruce Eugene. Like, big quarterback. He can move around with it. He has a powerful arm. So I think that Miles is going to win. But if Albany won, oh my gosh, I would be so excited. Oh my gosh. Please win, Albany. Do this for me. We rivals, but we both blue and gold. Okay. Do this for y'all had enough side championships. Do this for us, okay? Beat them, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna make it happen.
That's your speech.
Yes.
That's your award-winning speech, to give them like win but then lose. I feel it. I like the psychology that you got going on there. Hype them up and then bring them down. Sounds really nice. On to your past homecoming, which I need to know who won. Fort Valley versus Virginia University of Lynchburg. Who you got, but also update me. How was it?
So Fort Valley won over Morehouse 31-3. I'm going to talk about the homecoming side of it in a second, but there's not really much to say here. Virginia University of Lynchburg is a football team, right? So as we know, any given Saturday, any given Sunday, anything can happen, really in any sport. I know that with football, it really goes down to personnel, game plan, and style more than like a basketball game, because I think basketball deals more with talent often. But with football, you can have talent, but it's all about scheme. And that's also how you disrupt that talent. It was a shootout with Lane and Virginia University and Lynchburg. I don't think it would be that with Fort Valley because of our defensive line. I think that this should just be a tune-up game for the Albany game. Because I think the Albany, like, they're playing against Miles, and they might lose or win that game. Who knows? But they're playing against a tough team. So we're playing against a team that we should beat by like the 5-minute mark of the first quarter. It should be over, to be honest with you. But I mean, if it's not, that's an indictment on us. It won't count against our record. Ironically, it'll count against our playoff record. We won't make the playoffs. But at the same time, like, I think that we will win. But if we were to lose, it would be an indictment on us. And I don't think Kelvin Durham plays. I wouldn't play him because he didn't play. He didn't play homecoming. So I would sit Kelvin Durham just to make sure he's healthy for Albany, because that's the game. Hate to say it for Lynchburg, but that's the game that matters. Like this is just an extra home game we needed on the schedule. I hate to say it like that, but this is just honest. But we need to give them that receipt back for beating us 2018. I ain't forgot about that. I don't think the players know. Coach Gibbs probably don't even realize it. Like, we lost in 2018 because he's new. He was winning celebration balls when we lost to Lynchburg. Okay, so maybe we need to let them know, hey, Coach Gibbs, we lost to Lynchburg, so get that game plan together. You know what I mean? But as far as homecoming, Arielle, we beat Morehouse 31-3. But I'll just say this when it comes to homecoming, like I was, I felt a little way going back because I didn't know what really to expect. Because one thing that we talk about when we're younger, we talk about, the concept of having school friends, whereas like, oh, in high school, you cool with certain folks, you don't kick it with them outside of school. You got friends you kick it with outside of school, but your school friends, you friends in school and not that. I think that extends to college sometimes. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I think that extends to college sometimes, where there's folks on the yard that you rock with, you dap up, you hug, and all the different stuff. But it's not really the same when you've graduated and you all are off living your own lives. I know for me, I've had situations like that. So going back to Fort Valley, I'm like, I don't know. And 2021 was not a great homecoming because we were getting off COVID. It was super hot outside too. So it was sort of like a cautiousness of I don't want to die. So I mean, because I got asthma, so I don't want to die. I mean, like it was also sort of like I don't know, and I don't know what it's gonna be. But 2023, my brother's band, they win the parade. They won the parade actually. Arielle, they won first place. So yeah, they won the parade. I'm standing. I got my Fort Valley Letterman jacket on from college. Luck, shout out to them. I'm standing there with my dad. And then you got Dr. Jones, our president. He's on the floor. He's waving. He sees me, points at me. Hey, how you doing? I'm good. He said, hey, you still doing good work? I'm like, yes, sir, always. Like that. I like when the president acknowledges you and you just on the street. You know what I'm saying? He up in the floor. That meant a lot to me. I saw a lot of folks I hadn't seen in a minute. I got a lot of love. I got a chance to be the cool big brother. You know what I'm saying? Because they couldn't navigate Fort Valley because Fort Valley, like our campus is big, so like they need to get to the CAF, the stadium. So I'm just walking around like the old day. It was basically like a normal game day Saturday for me. Like back in 2019, I'm walking all around. I'm going to brunch, eating breakfast. I'm just walking around, but I had people following me. So I literally I'm seeing the campus, the amphitheater. They knocked down the old dorms. It looks amazing. And I'm just like, I brought a smile to my face when I came back on campus because that's home. And it really just recrystallized like my love for Fort Valley because I've always loved Fort Valley and I deal in HBCU. So I'm not too far away from it, but just seeing the growth in 4 years since I graduated, it was awe inspiring. And then seeing the school pride from the students, seeing the attendance at the game, seeing the football team, even without Kelvin Durham, be successful. And one last thing, Arielle, seeing the bookstore, because I currently have on what I bought from the bookstore. You see this hoodie, Arielle? Because see, A&T got stuff, okay? Because I went into y'all's bookstore. First and foremost, it's a lot of money. Y'all cost a little bit more than Fort Valley. Because I got me a nice little windbreaker when I went, and I got me a now too small 3-peat Celebration Bowl shirt. Okay, it's too small now. You never see it again. It's too small now. But like when I tell you, like I went in there and I'm like, let me see what's going on in the bookstore. They probably got nothing in here. And I look and I'm like, wait a minute. They got the Stitch sweater. They got the Stitch hoodie I got on. They had a cardigan. They had a Fort Valley. I've been wanting the cardigan so like 1895 on like the left side, on the right side, Wildcat on the left side. I'm gonna wear that one day, and I'm gonna look really fit. I'm like Malcolm X. I'm telling you, I might get some glasses. I'm telling you, I'm gonna look just like like Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? We gotta protect the black woman. You feel me? So listen, it was amazing.
I'm shutting you down. No, you're done. You're done. You're done. Go ahead, clock out for me, Randall. You're done. You're done. Benedict versus Savannah State. Who do you have? We gotta shut you down. We gotta shut you down.
Hilarious. So listen, Benedict is historically great for real. And I think that people, like I talked about with the Jackson State thing, everybody's room for Benedict. For real. Like I don't think there's a hater of Benedict. Everybody wants to see Coach Berry succeed because he's so like he's so like powerful in how he speaks and he's rooted in his religion and all these different things. So I don't think anybody wants to see him lose or falter. They want to see him ultimately succeed. But I think that with the greatness has come a level of expectation that's unfair to him. And some conversations that's unfair to Benedict. I think it's wrong. I understand the conversation goes on, but I think it's wrong for us to continuously in this space talk about, well, what's his next move? What's his next stop? basically the Deion Sanders thing that we all hated. But y'all doing it to Coach Barry, and it's all good now. Like, I just, because it serves their interest. Because we knew Deion wasn't about to leave Jack State and go like to South Carolina State. We knew he was leaving going to FBS. So now with Coach Barry, we know the next move up is he going to South Carolina State? Is he going to this D1 school? And I just think it's messed up for the Benedict fans because they know what they have, but can we finish the season? But then now it's like, I don't know about Coach Barry as far as him, like, can he win in the playoffs? Can he beat these PWIs? Like, why are we judging his success based on can he beat a white school? I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? I really don't. I mean, he's run through the conference twice, and and his team has been dominant twice. But here's the thing: they're more dominant now than they were last year. They're way more dominant now than they were last year. And then they're like, can he beat a white school? They beat you one. Fayetteville State had to score a field goal to beat you one. They beat down. They just want to score a point. They beat down. I think he scored a field goal. They beat down to one. Like, Benedict is historically great. Let that man be great. If he leaves, let him leave, okay? And if he stays, he gonna stay. And I want him to stay. I want for Valley to win, but I want him to stay at the same time so he can still have that greatness. But like, Benedict is going. There's no real breakdown in this game. Benedict's gonna win. I think Jaden Adams is gonna be a threat because he's such a great quarterback, great at running. But I just need folks to chill on Benedict. If Benedict wins this game how we think they will, they probably will blow out Savannah State. They blew out a tougher Fort Valley opponent. They had a closer game against a Miles College team that they were beating soundly at halftime. So they likely blow out Savannah State. But celebrate that. Don't be like, they blew out Savannah State, but can they beat Valdosta? I don't care. Like, what? Can like, come on, like, Virginia Union beat Valdosta. You think Benedict can't? Like, come on, like, we'll get that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. The white man ice ain't always cold. That's why I'm be Malcolm X, Arielle. The white man ice ain't always cold. Okay, Benedict is going to win this game and let them continue to win, and we'll see what happens around Thanksgiving and around December if they make it to like the final four of that tournament. But Benedict is just fine. Leave Coach Barry alone. Leave that man alone.
You're just not going to give up on that Malcolm X.
Oh, no, I'm not.
You're just never going to go anywhere. Those are the ends of my picks. I think we have really good picks. I think most of their games are definitely in the SIAC, but hey, we'll see. Happy homecoming to everybody. I'm finna have a great time this weekend. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know you are. You're going to be down at Spellhouse. So I know it's going to be great. But Arielle, great show on today. We're almost at the end of the football season, and it's a very somber experience, but I think it's going to be some great conversations, playoffs, bowl games, Celebration Bowl. So I think there's going to be a lot of great stuff coming up we're going to be talking about really soon. But Arielle, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at _.MartyrdayAri, or you can put me in the hot seat on Twitter. I know you guys want to after that Desmond Ritter comment. So you can find me at @screwy__, or follow me on my website at www.theunaxedopinion.weebly.com.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.